Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachak Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Nothing Worse Than a Slave That Thinks He's Free. This is a title that came to me last night. I was watching The Great Debaters, the Denzel Washington movie. And at first I wasn't going to watch it because I really didn't feel like hearing a whole bunch of people arguing, I just didn't really feel like being bothered, but Spirit compelled me to watch it. And I'm glad I did, because it's a lot more than that, sometimes you have a certain notion in your mind, but nevertheless, I did watch it. And very good movie, based off of a true story. And towards the end, they went to debate at Yale. And pretty much, that was one of the things that, along with many others, that brought about the so-called civil rights movement. And although most people think that the civil rights movement was really a good thing, because the reason why they feel that way is because it gives an appearance of freedom. But what it is more of a liberty. Now, there's a difference between freedom and there's a difference between liberty. Freedom is the ability to move, as you please, being unhindered. And liberty comes with the restrictions. You're at liberty to do whatever you want, as long as you stay within the confines, of such and such, whatever that may be. And through the so-called civil rights movement, what was really pushed hard on that was the 14th Amendment, which is pretty much an amendment that binds you through contract to the jurisdiction of the of Esau's system, pretty much, and that led me to, that had the title that popped in my head is Nothing Worse Than a Slave That Thinks He's Free. And to this day, Jake thinks that they're free because they're able to roam the streets or whatever the case is and do what they want. They can get drunk when they want to get drunk. They can get with women when they want to get with women. Women can do whatever they want. So they really feel that that is a form of freedom. But it's not. It's a liberty, because we are still slaves. Now, when we read the 13th Amendment, they call it the abolition of slavery, but it was more so what the devil Abraham Lincoln said, Emancipation Proclamation, which the word emancipate means to transfer from one hand to another. So Jake went from southern plantations to northern industrial plantations. All right, gives you the date it was signed and so-called ratified, so on and so forth. We're going to focus more on section 1. We'll read a little section 2. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude. And so it doesn't say anything about voluntary servitude. What is voluntary servitude? Voluntary servitude is a person that gives themselves over to be a slave of their own, consent. Now, when we read the 14th Amendment, that goes into the jurisdiction. But down here it says Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. And whenever you're dealing with Esau, there's always open-ended clauses, open-ended amendments. There's never anything that's closed. It's always open to more interpretation and more, legislation. It's never, you know, black and white. It's never clear. That's why when we read the book of Isaiah chapter 10 and 1, it says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, because those decrees are unrighteous, because they're not giving you the stipulations. They're not giving you everything forthright. And every contract is supposed to be conscionable, meaning it's supposed to be, both parties are supposed to know exactly what the contract consists of, especially the person that's signing the contract, which that's never done. There's always clauses and, added things and certain wording that that if a person doesn't know how to read a contract, they get caught up once they put their John Doe or their John Hancock on it. So it says, woe unto them, or destruction unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that right grievousness which they have prescribed. Because what happens is these laws that they put into place, these contracts that they make you sign, come with grievousness from the laws that they have put into the books, to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people. And this is exactly what they do, because they know that Jake will pretty much sign their life away, not even knowing that widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless. So that's what this is about. And when you go into the 14th Amendment, like I said, the 14th Amendment is the amendment that makes voluntary slaves, subject to the jurisdiction of whatever state or country or whatever the case may be. And it's signed or made into effect by contract. It's a contractual law because there's no such thing as human beings, or there's no such thing as people, really. It's all products. There's all commodities, and that's why you have the stock exchange where you trade certain commodities. And believe it or not, slaves are traded on the open stock, exchange. I'm pretty sure there's certain ways to read it. I'm not an expert at it, so don't ask me to explain it. So it leads us to something called the adhesion contract, which the word adhesion, comes from the French. It says act of or state of sticking or being stuck, a being united or attached. From French adhesion, if that's how you pronounce it. I'm just being a little facetious with it. Or directly from Latin adhesionem, adhesio, a sticking to, because it comes from the word ad, which is to, and harere means to stick. So adhesion literally means to stick. All right, and that attached to contract means that this contract is binding between the person who wrote it and the person that entered into the agreement. And the way that it's enforced is by a person's signature. That's why all contracts must be signed. So we go to adhesion contract. What is an adhesion contract? An adhesion contract is an agreement where one party has substantially more power than the other in setting the terms of the contract, and that person being the one that writes the contract. For a contract of adhesion to exist, the offerer must supply a customer with standard terms and conditions, which is the actual contract, that are identical to those offered to other customers. So the contract is something known as what they call down here a boilerplate. Now, if you know anything about a boilerplate is nothing more than something that just keeps being produced. It's the same thing that's just being produced over and over again. It's a copy of the original, and that copy of the original is used to give to all the different customers, right? Those terms and conditions are non-negotiable, meaning the weaker party, which is the one that signs the contract. Sign the contract, big boy. Sign the contract. Inside joke. In the contract must agree to the contract as it is, rather than requesting clauses be added. So they have to. So pretty much an adhesion contract, as it's going to state later, is as is. And that's it. Removed or changed. So you can't add any clauses, you can't remove anything, you can't change anything. Adhesion contracts may also be referred to as boilerplate contracts or standard contracts. All right. Key takeaways. Adhesion contracts are take it or leave it agreements where you must accept the contract as a whole or walk away. which most people don't know that. Because when you sign in certain things in the society, you're signing it because you're thinking that that's what you have to do. They don't explain to you that you don't have to do it, and that's where the ignorance comes in. Adhesion contracts are meant to simplify business transactions by standardize an agreement between the supplier and the buyer, because everything revolves around buying and selling. Just like when we read the book of Proverbs 22, right? And 7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. See? So the one that's borrowing, or the one that's signing contracts, is always a servant to the lender. So there's always business transactions happening with contracts. And that's why they have the 14th Amendment. Because remember, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist. But it didn't say anything about voluntary servitude. So how do you get somebody to become a voluntary servant? Is by having them sign a contract. And the ignorance is that they don't, unbeknownst to them, the contract binding makes them a slave to the person who wrote the contract. You see? It says to be enforceable, adhesion contracts cannot be unreasonably one-sided, which they always are, especially the international bankers. Courts ultimately decide what is reasonable within the adhesion contract. This evolves over time and may differ across jurisdiction. I just want to read this little bit here. I believe, this one here. Enforceability of adhesion contracts. For a contract to be treated as an adhesion contract, it must be presented as a take it or leave it deal, giving one party no ability to negotiate because of their unequal bargaining positions. Adhesion contracts are subject to scrutiny, though, and that scrutiny usually comes in one or two forms, and it goes into it. And I'm not gonna put that into it. If you go and just type in Investopedia, and then type in adhesion contract, because I ran across these. Actually, I pulled them up after I had set up the live thing. So just type in Investopedia and then type in adhesion contract, and this will come up. We already went to the word adhesion, which means to stick. And then I have this here, which you know what? I'll do it like this. Copy. I typed in, on online on Google, do birth certificate, our birth certificates adhesion contracts, and this one of the articles that came up. So this is page 3 of this article, or this I guess you could call it an ebook, a mini book. It says the birth certificate, the source of all enslaving adhesion contracts, and everyone that is on, unless they know about this, everybody thinks that they're free, but nobody understands that we are all still slaves. That's why, let's go to Exodus chapter 21 and verse 16. It says, and he that stealeth a man, or selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. So we're still found in this man's hand, and he's not letting go. He's being hardened like the Pharaoh of old. So it says, the birth certificate creates an artificial entity, and that's exactly what it does. When you go up top to the definition, you have different definitions, and one of them, being a Black's Law Dictionary, pretty much speaks about, it doesn't say artificial entity, but the wording is pretty much, you could say it's an artificial entity, which is created by signing a contract. And this is why when you're dealing in contracts, the name of a person appears in all capital letters, because that's a fictitious entity. It's not an actual person. It's a fictitious entity created under the terms of that contract. That's why anything you get from the government, your name is always going to be in all capital letters, because we are not, to them, we are not people. We are property. We are corporations, So it goes on to say, The birth certificate creates an artificial entity. In the beginning, the entity is merely a name, attached to which are other names of state-certified parents, doctors, informants, and places. I'm just going to skip around a little bit. A birth certificate is executed by signing, filing, and recording it, which constitutes the act of wholly bringing the certificate and the artificial entity it creates into separate, distinct, unique being. Which that's now this is no longer a person. This is a commodity. This is a product, just like anything else: oranges, apples, pears, peaches. It says the subject matter of the written instrument certificate, that's the birth certificate, is the live birth of an infant, but it is not the live birth that is executed by signing, filing, and recording the certificate that had already been accomplished, usually several days before the filing, by conception and gestation, consummated by a child being born. Neither the state nor its registrar had anything to do with executing the live birth of the child. So now you can read more if you want. I'm just going to skip through. It says they enter into adhesion contracts with government agencies that strip them of the ability to exercise natural rights and obligate them to all manner of demeaning servitude. And that's how you become a slave. All right, by these contracts. So we're contractual slaves under the 14th Amendment. All right, we're nothing more than commodities traded on the open stock exchange. It says Blacks defines adhesion contract as a standardized contract form offered to consumers of goods and services on essentially take it or leave it basis, without affording consumer realistic opportunity to bargain, and under such conditions that consumer cannot obtain desired product or services except by acquiescing in form of contract. And acquiesce means pretty much you're giving up your rights when you sign that contract. And that's why it has to be all done by contract, because you have something called the UCC, or the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the body of law for contracts and how to deal with contracts and how to enforce contracts and how to do this and how to do that. All right. I know Dr. Davis is getting into this. Salakia, brother. I got a little excited. Elder Ariala. Salakia, brother, for that. A distinctive feature of adhesion contract is that weaker party has no realistic choice as to its terms. All right. So the distinctive feature of adhesion contract is that weaker party, which is the one signing, has no realistic choice as to the terms. Why? Because they're not the ones that wrote the contract. All right. So, and once again, I say apologize to the brother. I didn't mean to. That just came out. It's my fault. My bad. It says Black defines. We just read that. Oh no, sorry. Blacks defines adhesion contract as, we just read that. Yeah, we just did read that. Feature of adhesion contract. Okay. Now, let's see. An intractable system of governance has developed by which it is made difficult for the natural person to exist, much less thrive, except by contract with government agencies. Adhesion contracts seem to be required of him to own and drive a car, own or rent property. Why? Because the beginning of this entity was created by the birth certificate without the knowledge of the person who the birth certificate was written to. So that would be something known as unconscionable contract, which is they had no idea. So really they should not be held to the letter of the contract, because they had no idea when the contract was made that it was signed in their name. You see, acquire food, gasoline, and most critically to obtain the government Federal Reserve notes, cash necessary to secure these benefits. And that's why your birth certificates, the driver's licenses, the social security cards, and all of that numbers, these are all leading, or this was all the beginning of leading into the MOTB, which is the mark of the beast, And that's what's going to get everybody, in a quagmire to either you comply with the contract that was already signed, when you were born, or you're outside of the circle, so to speak. And there's one more point here I want to read. It says, do you see what happens? The contractor provides not the date of birth of the certificate, but his birthday. The bureaucrat never argues, even though the face of the certificate proves the applicant is lying. The consumer is always right. The bureaucrat merely pushes the adhesion contract across the counter for the applicant's signature. The contract is executed, and the natural person, who by association with the date of birth of an artificial entity binds and obligates himself to whatever onerous specific performance will be required of the contractor. Because at the end of the day, you become a slave. By submitting a birth date, the contract adheres to the hapless individual. Invariably, one condition of such contract is that should any controversies arise, the applicant agrees to let the matter be arbitrated in the company courts. Neither natural rights nor constitutional rights are issues, nor are they permitted expression in such courts. That's why when you try to argue that you have these so-called rights according to the Constitution, the courts don't want to hear it, because you're not arguing as your person. You're arguing, or you're trying to argue as a person, but you're appearing within the court as an artificial entity that is subject to the jurisdiction of these courts and of the this whole system. All right. So like I said, you could read more, but I just wanted to bring that point out. So let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah chapter 2 and 9. It says, wherefore I will yet plead with you, saith the Lord, and with your children's children will I plead, because the Most High ultimately made the best contract with us, because we're under contract with the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, before all of this other stuff came about. And time again, going through every different captivity that we've gone through, it's been the same thing. Nope, this ain't it. We've fallen under the captivity of these different nations. We've fallen under their jurisdiction, under their laws, and entered into contracts with them. And this is why the Lord said, Exodus 23:32, thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. Because when you sign these contracts, pretty much is signing a contract with the gods of Esau in this time. But the scriptures say, because we're all under that, but the scriptures say that at the time of our ignorance, the Most High winked at. So the Lord knows that it was done, maliciously by Esau. That's why when we go back to Isaiah chapter 10 and 1, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, because they did this and did not give anybody the knowledge that they were doing it, to give them the option of, okay, well, either I'll sign or not sign. All right, so going back to Jeremiah 2 and 10 now, for pass over the isles of Kittim and see and send unto Kedar and consider diligently and see if there be such a thing as this thing that the Lord is going to speak about. Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? These nations, the gods that they have are idols. It says in Psalms 96 and 5. Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? So their gods are not gods, and they have not changed that. But it says, but my people have changed their glory for that which doth not profit, because the Most High profits, but these idols do not profit. You see? It says, be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid, be ye very desolate, saith the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, where we got everything from. The knowledge, the wisdom, understanding, the land, everything that came along with it, all of the blessings. That's one of the things we forsook. And then the second thing was, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. And that's why unto this very day you see Jake in plantation Christianity. You see Jake in Islam. You see Jake in the black unconscious community. You see Jake in these different religions, snared and trapped in holes. Because the cisterns and the water that they drinking from are the waters of a stranger, of a strange woman. Let's go real quick to the book of Proverbs, chapter 5, and verse 15. Drink waters out of thine own cistern, and running waters out of thine own well, because this truth of this knowledge is overflowing. It's overwhelming. There's so much that you can't keep up with it. So there's no need to go to somewhere else where you thought the grass is greener, because this is all that we need. But what happened? Jeshurun waxed fat and what? And kicked and forsook the Lord. We all forsook the Lord at one time. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, because Jake is everywhere. And the nations are supposed to be following us, not the other way around. They're supposed to be lauding us. They're supposed to be bowing to us, not the other way around. But we're under curses. That's why we're in this condition. And rivers of waters in the streets, let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. See? Let thy fountains be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth, which is this truth. You could use this twofold for your woman too, but we're dealing with the part of wisdom. Let her be as the loving hind and pleasant roe, swift. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with the love. Yeah, because this knowledge, there's a ravishing of it. You have to grab hold and not let go. All right. And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a stranger? Because that leads to what? To decay, to loss. Remember the story of the prodigal son. He was with his father. He had everything. He wanted to go off on his own, and what happened? He had nothing. He was pretty much desolate. So that's why he had to return back to the father. You see? Because he had everything. Like the Lord said, what more could have been done to my vineyard that I didn't do already? So as you know what? All right, y'all want to play games? All right. When shit happens to y'all, I'm going to go return to my place so you acknowledge your offense. But when shit happens to you, go seek to those gods that you were looking to before to help you. See if they can come and deliver you. Since you don't want nothing to do with me. For the ways of a man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. So, going back to Jeremiah 2:14 now, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? And we see this to this very day. This is why the 33rd verse, it says, why trimmest thou thy ways to seek love? Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways. Because Jake will trim their ways to seek love. And they're seeking love in all the wrong places. Looking penub in all the wrong places. And the one place that they should be looking is here. And it's not like they don't have the prophets out there letting them know what's going on. But they go about to establish their own righteousness. All right. All right. So it says the young lions. I'm sorry. Before we read on, let's go from there to Isaiah 5. And let's start at the 11th verse. It says, woe unto them that rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink. Now, this is talking about actual physical drinking, and all that. But this is also really dealing with spiritual drinking that continue until night, till wine inflame them. And that's dealing with these different philosophies. Because although it may seem cool at first, the latter end is bitter. Ask all of these different Jake celebrities that sold out. and did certain things, and how sweet their life was at the beginning, and then how it just started getting more and more bitter, how them demons really started to really bother them and mess with them more and more and more. You know? It says that continuing tonight to wine inflamed them, and the harp and the viol, the tabret, the pipe, and wine are in their feast. Yeah, this is talking about actual feast, but this is also talking about spiritual. You know? That's dealing with all of these different scenarios and different so-called religions, whatever, by whatever name they go, what different schools of thought, philosophies that Jake gets into. But they regard not the work of the Lord, neither consider the operation of his hands. Why? Because they're too busy partying and dancing and singing to the wrong tune, drinking the wrong wine. See? And they're not drinking the wine of the Lord, which is the best wine, which Elder Apostle Gabar just did a lesson on that. And I don't know if I was able to finish watching the whole video, but one thing that did come to mind when the apostle was breaking it down was that, you know, the governor of the feast said, you know, most people bring out the good wine at the beginning and leave the old for last. But you have brought out the best wine at the end. And the best wine is this truth, this knowledge that's being taught, and it's out here at the end. Yahweh Shai said, all that came before me were thieves, you know, and robbers, you know. But this is, and the Apostle Paul said that the Lord has sent forth us, the apostles, last. So this knowledge came out last. So this is the best wine. But then everybody else out there is so used to drinking that old rotten wine that they're pickled in it, so to speak. It says now, therefore, my people are going into captivity because they have no knowledge. And that's why we're still in the condition that we're in. And it's to the point where, since Jake doesn't see the chains physically on them, they think that they're free. But that's just an illusion to freedom, which is really not an illusion to, really, it's an illusion to freedom, but it's more of a liberty, which your liberty is you are bound, you know, by permission. That's why you can't drive your car unless you have a license. That's why you can't do this without a license. That's why you can't do that without your so-called social security number. That's why you can't do this without your birth certificate. You may receive that permission, but you have to sign the contract, big boy. And their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Yeah, so Jake, as a whole, even to this very day, you know, we're in captivity. It says, therefore hell hath enlarged itself, meaning this condition of hell, this low state, and opened her mouth without measure. Yeah, because you see Jake, I mean, sometimes you see Jake in such a destitute state, you're like, God damn. You know, I'm talking about hit, you know, to where you start feeling sorry for them. It's like, damn. But this is the condition that the Lord brought us down to. It says, and they think in their mind that they're free. That's the even crazier thing about it. That's why, as the name of the lesson is, nothing worse than a slave that thinks he's free. And their glory and their multitude and their pomp and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. So there was no way to escape these conditions that we're living in. We forsook the Lord, so the Lord made us to descend to the lowest parts of hell, meaning this low condition, captivity, slavery. And even to this day, Jake has the illusion of freedom, but we're still in slavery. So it says, and the mean man shall be brought down, meaning the common man shall be brought down, and the mighty man shall be humbled, and the eyes of the lofty shall be humbled. Yeah. But the Lord of hosts shall be exalted in judgment, and the Most High that is holy shall be sanctified in righteousness, because the Lord brings forth his judgments to pass every day, but the unjust knoweth no shame. So you have Jake out here that really believed. Like, I mean, you could do it yourself. You could just, hey, listen, I want to ask you a question. Now, do you think you're free? You think you have freedom? Oh yeah, man, I can go here. I can do it. I went over here. Then I went. But they have no clue as to the reality of their situation. Back in Jeremiah 2:14, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? Spoiled means robbed. But we're going to get to that precept. Matter of fact, you know what? I'll bring it out now. And then if the Spirit allows us to go into it again. Isaiah 42:22. It says, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. What are the holes? These different religions, philosophies, schools of thought, different schemes, business schemes, trying to buy, real estate, trying to do this, trying to live a better life, have a better opportunity. It says, and they are hid in prison houses, same thing, because these prison houses are not talking about actual jails, even though you do have a lot of Jakes in jail, but this is talking about these prisons of the mind. They are for prey, right? Because we are supposed to be the hunters, but we became the prey, and none delivereth. This goes hand in hand with the book of Deuteronomy 28:68. And no man shall buy thee, no man shall help you. For a spoil, and none saith restore, right? Because there's nobody restoring Jake back to health, except for the prophets that are out there. But the ones that they trust, the real prophets they don't listen to, but the ones that they want to listen to can't restore them because they're not restored. The scriptures say the whole head is sick. So we'll come back to this. I just wanted to get that point. So it says, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? The young lions roared upon him and yelled. That's different, dealing with these different nations. Because when a young lion is young, he's vigorous. He's active until he gets older, then he couches down. So these nations they were like young lions over us, especially Esau. And they made his land waste. His cities are burnt without inhabitant. And all these nations had a hand in bringing us down. Psalms 83. It says, also the children of Naph and Tahpanhes have broken the crown of thy head. So all nations had a hand in taking us down from our royal state. All you have to do is, matter of fact, let's go to Lamentations. Chapter 2 and verse 15. It says, all that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head at the daughter of Jerusalem. When you're looking at somebody like, tuss, look at this mother, like in disdain and disgust, and then looking down and say, yeah, I thought you was so and so and such and such. I thought you was a big head cheese in charge. Look at you now. Saying, is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty? The joy of the whole earth? These are the Israelites? Nah. And that's the attitude. That's when we jump up and tell them that the Most High is a so-called black man. Yahushua is a so-called black man. The angels are so-called black men. The people of the Lord are so-called black men. Women. From a dark brown to a light brown. They're like, oh hell no. The what? The Negroes, the Haitians, the West Indians, the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans. Oh hell no. They ain't trying to hear it. Because of the low condition that we've come to. And not only are we in a low condition, but you have a lot of Jakes out there that are still ignorant of what's going on. They still think that they're free. Yeah, they can free the slaves, man. What did he say? Massachusetts. It says, all thine enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash their teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. Certainly this is the day that we look for. We have found it. We have seen it. So we're in this low state, and these nations know it, especially the higher ups. All right. So going back to Jeremiah 2:17, it says, hast thou not procured this unto thyself, in that thou hast forsaken the Lord thy power when he led thee by the way? So we brought this upon ourselves. Even though there's a higher meaning to everything that we understand, but we brought it upon ourselves. It says, and now what hast thou to do in the way of Egypt? You know, ancient Egypt, modern day Egypt, you know, the different captivities we went into. Here it is, these nations that took us down and we're trying to assimilate to their ways. You know, crazy. To drink the waters of Sihor, or what hast thou to do in the way of Assyria to drink the waters of the river? Right. We're not supposed to be involved in none of these other nations, whatever they doing. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 10 and 20. It says, a remnant will return, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel, and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob, meaning the elect, shall no more again stay upon him that smote them. We're not going to stay upon Esau and the other nations, looking to them for benefits, looking to them to help us out, looking to them for our benefits, for our, for glory or whatever the case may be. But shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, in truth, because the truth is what's going to separate, the elect of the nation of Israel from the rest of the Israelites. And that's where the Lord said, then shall it be known who are my chosen. So go back to Jeremiah 2:18. Let's read that again. And now what hast thou to do in the way of Egypt to drink the waters of Sihor? Or what hast thou to do in the way of Assyria to drink the waters of the river? So now let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, the 31st chapter. And the first verse. It says, woe to them that go down to Egypt for help. And a lot of Israelites are here in America, which is the modern day Egypt. They're looking for help here. They're not trying to hear what the Lord has to say. They ain't trying to hear what the Lord is saying. They want to know what Esau's saying. That's why nothing makes their world go around unless Esau is down with it. And stay on horses and trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Yeah, because they see the benefits that Esau has. They see everything that Esau can do for them. But they're not looking to the Lord for these benefits, which is the Lord that's given us these benefits anyway. Scripture say that the Lord loadeth us daily with benefits. But Jacob is looking to Esau for those benefits. It says, yet he also is wise and will bring evil and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of evildoers and against the help of them that work iniquity. So the Lord is going to bring judgment. He's going to use these same nations, beginning with Esau, that Jacob is trusting in to bring the pain. It says, now the Egyptians are men and not God. But Jacob out here is treating Esau and the other nations, especially the Edomites, like as if they were the Most High. It says, and their horses flesh and not spirit. Yeah, because their actual horses are flesh, but you also have, their jets and all that. Those are not spirit, even though they have a spirit in them, even though they have power, but they're not spiritual entities like, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and the angels. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping shall fall down, and they shall all fall, and they all shall fall together. Right. And that's dealing with these Sambos, that help Esau, with, trying to keep his kingdom afloat. So now let's go from there to the same book. Let's go a chapter before that. Isaiah 30:1. Woe to the rebellious children, because all of the nation of Israel rebelled against the Most High. And this is why we find ourselves in the position that we're in. That's why we're still slaves underneath Esau. Saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me. See? Because you're not taking the counsel from the Lord. Because the Lord he got his men out here teaching. You ain't coming to that to take heed or wise counsel, and ask at the mouth of the Lord, what's going on? Why am I in this condition? What can I do to get out of this condition? You look into Esau. You look into Kemet. You look into these different religions. You look into the Roman Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, Plantation Christianity. You look in everywhere but where you need to go. And that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit. Yeah, because you have a particular cover on you, but it's not of the Lord's Spirit, because the Lord already took the veil off the cover that Esau spread over the world. So there's no excuse now. Isaiah 25:7, and he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. And that is those fallacies, those different, the different obstacles, stumbling blocks that Esau put in the way, from nationality to religion to everything in between. The Lord has taken that away. So you're covering yourself with a covering, but not of the Lord's Spirit, that they may add sin to sin. And you know what sin to sin, and when you keep sinning and add sin to sin to sin to sin to sin, that becomes transgressions. You got sins, you got iniquities, you got transgressions. Those are compiled sins. It says that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Yeah, because our shadow is Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. But Jake out here is trusting in Esau's shadow. That's not it. Okay, so like this. Nope. Haven't gone over this in a while. Right, Psalms 121:5. You can read the whole chapter short. I started at 4. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall never slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, even forevermore. So the Lord is our shade upon our right hand. But Jacob is trusting in the shadow of Egypt. They're looking to Esau and the other nations, especially Esau, to hide them, to cover them. Yeah, goddamn weak sauce. It says, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame. Yeah, because the same way that you're leaning upon this devil, for protection, is going to turn to your shame. And the trust in the shadow of Egypt, your confusion. And this is why Jake is in the condition that they're in today. And when they wake up and find out the truth, even though it's out there, they're going to be in a bad case, man. For his princes were at Zoan, and his ambassadors came to Hanes or Hanez. They were all ashamed of a people that could not profit them. And you're going to be ashamed of these people that cannot profit you, nor be in help, nor profit, but a shame and also a reproach. That's why it says that they that consent unto them shall be had in derision. All right, so let's continue on. It says, the burden of the beast of the south into the land of trouble and anguish, because America is going to be destroyed. From whence come the young and old lion, the viper and the fiery flying serpent. So the fiery flying serpent is what? This is dealing with the missiles. That viper, that sting, fiery flying serpent. It says, they will carry their riches upon the shoulders of young asses, and their treasures upon the bunches of camels, to a people that shall not profit them. And these people are not profiting you. You hear you're burning oblations, you're burning incense, spiritually, that is, to Esau, you bowing down to them, you giving them laud and praise, but they're not going to benefit you. They're not going to profit you. Why? Because the Lord is going to destroy you. It says, for the Egyptians shall help in vain and to no purpose. Therefore have I cried concerning this. Their strength is to sit still, because you will sit still, but you will be squirming when the Lord starts bringing judgment upon this world. So back to Jeremiah 2:19 now. Thine own wickedness shall correct thee, and thy backsliding shall reprove thee. And this is why we find ourselves in this condition. And it's crazier now, at least during the time of slavery, Jake knew that they was in slavery. You know, when the Spaniards were out, you know, and the different Edomite nations were out and about in different places, Jake knew that they were captive. You know, when Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were brought over to this side of the world, they knew they were in captivity. But today, they're still in captivity, but they think that they're free because there's no chains around their neck, because they're not on a plantation working, because the encomienda system is no longer around in the name that it was back then, which was the slavery of the so-called Latin tribes. It says, know therefore and see that it is an evil thing and bitter. That's why we're in America. Bitter, amargo, that thou hast forsaken the Lord thy power, and that my fear is not in thee, saith the Lord power of hosts, because the Lord is about to open up. What do you think the time of Jacob's trouble is all about? Now let's go from there to the book of Lamentations, chapter 1 and 1. It says, how doth the city sit solitary that was full of people? How is she become as a widow, she that was great among the nations and princes among the provinces? How is she become tributary? Now this happened during the time of the Babylonian captivity, but this applies today too, because Esau today is a modern day Babylonians. We're still in captivity and we're still tributary. But the problem is that Jake doesn't know that they're in captivity because they're dealing with under adhesion contracts through the 14th Amendment. So it says, she weepeth sore in the night, and her tears are on her cheeks. Among all her lovers, she had none to comfort her. Yeah, because these nations don't give a damn, especially East. None of these nations give a damn about Jake. All they care about is making money. Amalek, they'll cheese in your face all day long. You know? Just as long as you're making the money. Once you can't perform, produce, make more money, they pushing you to the side and going to the next. What's the next talent? Who's the next one we can exploit? At the end of the day, they don't give a shit about you. They'll smile in your face, though, as long as you're making that money. All her friends have dealt treacherously with her. They are become her enemies. Yeah, because you trusted in them, but they're going to become your enemies. Judah is going into captivity because of affliction and because of great servitude. And the thing about it, especially Jake today, Judah, Benjamin and Levi too, because they're all a part of the southern kingdom. But Judah, they're the most hard-headed because they really think that they're free. That's why the name of the title, nothing worse than a slave that thinks he's free. So it says, Judah is going into captivity because of affliction and because of great servitude. She dwelleth among the heathen. She findeth no rest. All her persecutors overtook her between the straits. Yeah, because you gave your all to them. You made a contract agreement with them. But what happened? They didn't honor their side of the bargain, because at the end of the day, they're the devil. And the scriptures say, never trust thine enemy. For as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So let's go from there to 2 Ezra 16 and 67. It says, behold, the Most High himself is the judge. Fear him. Leave off from your sins and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall the Most High lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble. And this is what we're looking for, the Lord to deliver us from all trouble. For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, which that's about to that's the next step after the MOTB, and in the midst of that, because they're calling in the debts. That's why they want everybody chipped, because they're calling in the debts. They want to claim this money that was lent out. They got a whole bunch of people out there that used the money, that borrowed the money, and now they want to make good on that debt. And the average person cannot pay off that debt. So guess what? They have to take that digital oil. It says, and they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols. And this is the point here. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot. When Esau don't need you no more, he's going to cast you away. As we always say, go back and ask those scouts that helped take their brothers down, Gad. What happened after Esau didn't need him no more? They threw him right in the same reservation camps that they helped put their brothers in and sisters in. And then they had the nerve to tell me, you were right to hate the white man. You know, no shit, Sherlock. It's a little late, ain't it? You know? All right, look at the big brains on you, man. You sure got it all figured out, don't you? And that's where a lot of Jakes are gonna be ashamed. All right, Jeremiah 13:7. Read a couple of verses here. Then I went to the Euphrates and digged and took the girdle from the place where I had hid it, because the Lord told him to put it there. And behold, the girdle was marred; it was profitable for nothing. Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Thus saith the Lord, after this manner will I mar the pride of Judah and the great pride of Jerusalem, or Yahweh and Jerusalem. This evil people, which refuse to hear my words, which walk in the imagination of their heart, and walk after other gods to serve them, because they have entered into a covenant or agreement with them, and to worship them, shall even be as this girdle, which is good for nothing. And that's what we're down in the condition that we're in. Right? It says, for as the girdle cleaveth to the loins of a man, so have I caused to cleave unto me the whole house of Israel and the whole house of Yahweh, saith the Lord, that they might be unto me for a people, and for a name, and for praise, and for a glory, but they would not hear. That's why the scriptures say, therefore my people have gone into captivity, because there is no knowledge. So let's go back to Isaiah 42. I got one more precept after this, and then we can close it out. Isaiah 42:22. It says, but this is the people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. And these contracts got Jake binded down. And they have no clue. Just like the curses are hovering over us and God is in a clench, so do these contracts. It says, they are for a prey and none delivereth, for a spoil and none saith restore. Who among you will who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Because we're still in captivity and there's no one that can restore. That's why Yahweh Shai has to come back and restore. And every time you read the scriptures, it always speaks about not being delivered. No one can be able to help you. No one can restore you. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? So who allowed Esau and the other nations to put us in captivity? Did not the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger. So captivity, slavery, everything that came upon us from the time that so-called Christopher Columbus came over here. Damn, I just had his other name too, but I forgot it because I didn't. But anyway, Lord's will I get to it. Therefore, so from that time the Lord had poured his fury upon us, the fury of his anger, and the strength of battle, and it hath set him on fire round about. Yet he knew not, and it burned him. Yet he laid it not to heart, because they don't consider, as it says in Isaiah the 1st chapter. Jake does not consider that they're still in captivity. They do not consider that the Heavenly Father is angry with them. And when we go out there to try to explain that to them, they don't listen. Like I said, there's a higher, meaning behind that, but just in layman's terms. So now let's go to the last precept. It's in Deuteronomy 28. We're going to read a couple of verses, and that's it. Deuteronomy 28:16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Why? Because we disobeyed. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store, which is, your money and your bank account. Because we don't have baskets and stores today. That's where you keep your money and where you store it. All right. Now we jump down to the 47th verse. Because thou servest not the Lord thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. So everything that you want, whether it's something to eat, whether it's something to drink, whether it's something to wear, whatever it is you want. You have your own business, you know how to make garments or whatever. You have to get the material somewhere. Have to go to this man for the want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And we're still in captivity under this day. The yoke is still around our neck, but it's not physical anymore. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 10 and verse 27. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that his burden shall be taken away from off thy shoulder. And it's done now spiritually by the truth. But when Yahushua comes back, it'll be done physically. And his yoke from off thy neck. And the yoke shall be destroyed because of the anointing. So it begins with the mind. It begins with the mind being free. And Jake is still in we're still in captivity under these contracts, but mentally we're free. Jake is in captivity in both ways. All right. So now let's jump from Deuteronomy 28:68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, which is modern day Egypt is America. The ships were the transatlantic slave trade, the southern kingdom was brought over here and some of the northern kingdom by slave ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, because we were warned, thou shalt see it no more again, meaning the land of Israel. At least when Jake was in the interiors of Africa, they had the ability to go back to Israel, even though that was lost. But now over here on this side of the world, forget about it. It says, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, meaning no man shall redeem you. Then that won't be able to get you out of that condition. You won't even be able to get yourself out of that condition. So in conclusion, nothing worse than a slave that thinks he's free. So with that, I pray that, well, matter of fact, you know what, for any brothers that came later, I'm going to put this in the chat, so you can go there if you want, and read the rest of this. This is pretty much birth dates. Is going to how the birth certificates and the birth dates and all that tie you in to these contracts, adhesion contracts, and bind you, to Esau as a slave, by contract. So with that, I pray that you brothers and your few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.